Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Trollspejlet's school for learning how to fix up your own body. We are back after a bit of a summer break where we have had a bunch of clinics, one of which we have proceeded to, exploit today in order to show how to fix up in a body that doesn't do its hip thingy well enough.
And as I said to her, and we are very grateful to you, Helen, that you were willing to do this. I know how awful it can feel to sit there on a video and everyone is watching all your faults, but I think everyone is grateful that we are willing to do this, because then everyone else can get some ideas as how to fix it, or at least try
to progress.
Yes, because it might take some time to do it, so we shouldn't give up.
We will never ever.
No. It's a continual struggle.
Gonna give you up. Sorry,
but shall we say something in general about this problem? Because he hasn't got that problem, so and it's difficult for people to understand if people who haven't got this problem with, weak waist, weak core, and stiff hip joints. Or no, it's not the joint that is stiff. Of course, it's the muscles around, the muscles who are manipulating the joint, and the muscles around the hip joints are very complex. Many muscles that are running in all kinds of directions, and they even function differently. Like if the leg is turned outside like this, the muscles function in a different way.
Yep.
So, but we're not going to go into that. We're going to show what to do.
What to do.
Yeah.
Yep. What to do. So, should we just start rolling movie, or do you want to?
I think so.
Talk on empty.
No.
A bit
that's
more.
Boring.
Let's roll the first movie.
Yeah. So often we are not quite sure, because when we look at the small index pictures we've got here, it's often difficult to see which movie it is or which video. But here we can see how Helen is. We just positioned her in. You see that she's trying to get her bottom further forwards in the saddle, because then she's having her seat bones in the correct position. But then you can see that she's struggling to stretch her legs down and backwards. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. So this is quite typical. A lot of riders have these issues. And what we do with putting the legs up like that is that we remove one of the X factors in the equation. That is, all of the flexibility issues in your hips are now not an issue when you sit like this. So there will be room for you to find where the seat bones should be, which is in the deepest point in the saddle. So the bottom of your seat bones should be in the deepest point in the saddle. And this is a surefire way to find it in any type of typical English saddle. In some other saddles as well, but especially with all types of typical English saddle, you can find the bottom of the saddle doing this.
Mm-hmm. And
It's
a good idea to try doing it while the horse is walking as well, just like this.
Absolutely, if your horse is safe, mind you.
Yeah.
And you can see here, when she tries to bring her legs back down, especially as now she brings her second leg back down as well, she moved her bum further back in the saddle.
Yeah, this is just like trying to do the splits for people like us, because it's You can try to shoot us if we don't do it, but we're still not able to do it because the muscles don't want to let go.
No.
So, but we have some tips as to what you can do to help.
Yep.
So let's just take in the next movie or video. It's like the 8407, and we'll see what we have made there. Here you can see how she's sitting without any like exercises and she's actually this is from a clinic that we had this last week. And you can see that she's wobbling a lot in her waist, and the hip joint is not moving that much.
Yeah.
But it's better than it was. So this is not this is a reason why you shouldn't be afraid of showing others that you have a trouble with something, because this is not something that she can help. You know, she needs help to do this.
Yeah.
To fix it.
It's really, really difficult to change your own body. There's a recurring theme in our clinics when I try to put people into a position where they're closer to a functioning rider's seat. People tend to say that it feels unnatural. And after a lot of experience, we have found out that what they mean isn't really unnatural. What they actually mean is this doesn't feel like it used to feel.
It feels strange.
It feels weird or strange or different or any other word. So it's not the thing you're normally doing. So if we look at this and try to decipher what's going on, we can see that, like Hanne said, the midsection is moving quite a lot. And we also see that the hips aren't really moving almost at all, just a little bit. But what we've done here is actually putting her way further forward in the saddle. So at this point, it's harder for her to move through the hips than it was just a few minutes earlier. Mm-hmm. But she still needs to find that bottom of the saddle with her bottom in order to find a good seat, because if you don't put up the pelvis in the correct alignment, the whole upper body will be compromised in its movement, and the hips as well.
And should we talk a little about stabo right now, just to?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we see that again so I can?
So we have a.
Yeah, it's easier to explain when you see the. It's the principle of the stabo. The stabo principle is something that we have from the physiotherapist Kelly Starrett, that is famous on YouTube. He's a very good one. We can recommend him. And he says that if the spine is stable, the hip joints and the shoulder joints can be mobile. And if the hips and shoulders are mobile, the spine can be stable. But it's when the spine is not stable, like we can see here, it's impossible for the hips to be mobile.
Yes, and in riding that is particularly true, and there is one simple reason for that. If your upper body isn't stabilizing and or balancing, which will be the same idea, you will find, then you have to hold on to the horse with your legs or you will fall off. Maybe not at like a leisurely walk, but definitely at a trot you will fall off. Or if the horse isn't perfectly balanced by its own volition without you helping out at all, then you will fall off.
And you said to me once, long time ago, you said, why are you clinging onto your horse with your knees? And I said, I'm not clinging to the horse. Oh yeah, you said, and you took my knee and you just
yanked it.
And I was like, it's painful. And I didn't realize I was like clinging or what you call like grabbing onto the horse, squeezing the horse.
Yeah.
But because I was not doing that consciously, my body did it by itself.
we need to show a principle that's kind of important in this, with regards to this. So we talk about the hips being loose all the time, right? And we talk about stabilizing the core. Okay, we're going to take one of those principles now and have a look at why it's important. The leg is designed so that the musculature on the inside of the thigh that starts in the pelvis and then inserts down in the inside of the thigh. It's designed so that when you walk, run, jump, that muscle is able to, with the long lever, this is now my leg, right? With the long lever of that, it can still provide stability in all directions. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. So I want you to do an experiment. Can you push on my hand here?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, push it. I can't hold it.
Yeah, that's.
I can't hold it.
Even you.
Can you push here?
The table is tipping.
You can't push at all.
No.
That is because the lever is now so much shorter, right? Mm. So when you sit on the horse, the inside of your thigh, all the way up underneath your pelvis, are in contact with the horse, right? And in that area, you're so strong, there is no chance anyone can pull your knees away from the horse if you hold on, if you grab by the thigh on the top. Mm-hmm. And that strength is what keeps the horse from moving freely through its back. Yeah. It's a leverage thing. Mm-hmm. And you're way, 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 way stronger than you think you are when you get up to that short lever.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is both about being able to like spread your legs, mm-hmm. and also stretching your quads.
Yeah.
At the front of your thighs, so hip flexors.
Yeah.
Because we're often too tight there as well.
Yes, and some of the muscles there, like the iliopsoas mm-hmm. complex, mm-hmm. They have sort of both those qualities. Yeah. They flex your leg in and forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both. Right.
So, okay. So shall we take a look at some of the techniques that you're using to help her like stretch and relax more in those muscles?
Yeah, and just show also what you actually mean.
Yeah, you can watch those videos.
Yeah,
like
sure.
1720.
1720.
So you can see here how difficult it is to get, the pelvis is now in the correct position. And Dalton wants to go because he feels the pressure from the upper leg. You can see that it's impossible to just pull it backwards. But what I'm actually doing now is that I'm not pulling. I'm just holding, and I ask her to try to push her leg forwards while I'm holding, and I'm counting to 5, and on 5 we both let go. And you can see every time we do it, she's able to let go a little more with her legs backwards, and outwards from the saddle. So
the area you stretch and the particular circumstances with sitting on a horse are of course special to this occasion, but the technique is called proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation.
Yes, it's very fun every time he says that.
Yay! So what you're doing is you're using your perception, i.e. you feel that in this case Hanne is pulling her leg back, so she grabs her by the knee and pulls the thigh back, while the rider then pulls the leg forward.
Yeah.
So there is an input from the outside that Hanne is applying. Then there is an activation by the rider trying to do a specific movement against the applied force from the outside. And then the release tricks the muscle or the brain into understanding, I think is the right way to say it, that your leg can actually be in this position and it's no danger there.
It's funny because it's more or less like a half halt. You're doing something active and then you release.
Yep.
But
you create some resistance
Yes.
in order to release it. And it works like a charm. We didn't come up with this. PNF, search it up. You can find lots and lots about that type of stretching on the internet.
And when you look at the video now,
Yep.
it looks as if I am trying to force her to stretch, but that will not work.
No.
Then you just get tension.
Actually, it will work if you force hard enough over a long enough time.
Yeah, of course. Then something is pulled or something. Yeah. Or stretch for a long time. But this is actually quite quick. You can see that she's... now I'm doing something else. I'm going to talk about that afterwards. Because there is too much happening here that I can explain it at the time.
Yeah.
But you can see when we come to the beginning of the movie or the film, you can see that she was not able to take her knee further back than this. And I'm pulling her leg to the outside and a little backwards, or not. I'm not pulling, I'm trying to hold her leg like there. And she's pushing her leg forwards against my hand. Push, and I count to 5, like slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, release. And then we both release. It's very important that the teacher is releasing at the same time as the rider is releasing, because else you will sort of, her nervous system will not trust you.
Yeah, and you can apply these techniques to any stretch you're doing.
Yeah, all stretches.
All right.
Push
so
back.
there are some other things Hanne is doing as well. She's poking her fingers into the muscles of the hamstrings and into the muscles of the butt.
Making sure that the pelvis is standing upright.
Yeah, that's one thing, but you also just poked around.
Yeah. And
just
that is
to
what I'm going to tell now.
This muscle now.
Yeah. But, I'm going to tell that now, because now I'm bending her knee. And then she's pulling her leg upwards. Her heel up towards her bottom.
Yeah.
And then you're activating the hamstrings and the seat muscles, the gluteus muscles.
Yeah.
But first, we need to get the leg in the right position so that it's possible to sit with the leg relaxed when the pelvis is straight.
Yeah.
And you can see that it's impossible in this situation.
And remember how we have talked about that one muscle on one side of the joint will work as an inhibitor for the muscle on the other side of the joint. So what we can see now is that this the techniques Hanne is using, they will stretch the inside and the front of the thigh, so that becomes more relaxed and more loose. And then she activates the musculature on the backside after the release, not before, but after.
And then if you activate the hamstrings and the seat muscles, everything will become more balanced, because when the quads, that is the front side, and the inside of the thigh is more active than the back side, you will get this syndrome.
Yep.
And then here I'm bending the knee and I'm still holding the thigh downwards so that position is correct. And here I'm pointing to the hip joint. The hip joint needs to come forwards. And then I'm poking at the hamstrings and the seat muscles. And then I'm pulling at her boot. I'm pulling down and she needs to push it up.
Yeah.
And then I'm activating the hamstrings and the seat muscles.
Yep.
And then you will get that balance, more balance. And it's very effective. It works wonders. If you can do this, you must practice doing it, of course. But if you can do this in a good way, It takes 5 minutes, and then the seat of the rider is much better. And when it's not as difficult as this case, we took this case because it's easier to see when it's really difficult for the rider.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have one of the other side as well. So if we can see the video 1723, I think. Yeah, this is something else. Then I'm doing, can you see that I'm walking beside the rider and pulling the knee backwards and the hip joint forwards. And I'm exaggerating a lot because, this is something, you shouldn't sit there and just making artificial movements like this. But if your body does not want to follow the horse, you must push your body a little, because if it's stiff on the front side of the leg and the hip flexors are too short, can you see that now? It's much more stable in her lower back,
mm-hmm.
and there is a little movement in her hip joint,
yeah.
even though we have actually placed her in a position that is very uncomfortable for her. So this is a very good job by the rider, because this is something that is really uncomfortable in the first place. But you can see by using this method, it's possible to make a big change in a short time.
Yep.
You can see how much more relaxed the leg looks now.
Much longer, much more relaxed. Seat more forward in the saddle.
Yeah.
Hips moving more, lower back moving less, horse moving freer. It's like everything improved
let
in my
down
opinion.
The stirrups 2 holes.
Yeah.
In this session.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there is also another thing that we use in this, after we've done this, getting the pelvis in an upright position and the seat bones in the deepest point of the saddle, and letting the leg a little looser. Then we can do something more to stabilize the upper body, to get that stability in the stab mob.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so difficult with the stab mob, because you can't just fix the hips first and then the back will be stable. You need both at the same time.
You need to fix both.
Yeah.
So this has been mostly what we have shown now. Obviously, has been about making the hip joints move more.
Mm-hmm.
So we're telling the muscles that are too active and or too short or tight or there are many names that will cover that ailment, but most people will have some sort of issue with having a shortened musculature in the front and inside of the thigh. And this is mostly related probably to the fact that we are sitting too much in our lives, and that started when we were 6 years old, and our culture is like that. There's not much to be done about that now, other than actually start working on trying to turn that ship around, which isn't very easy, but with efficient, effective techniques, it will be way faster than you might think.
It's possible to train this regularly, and then you will sort of prevent getting worse.
It is also possible to just get your body moving in this way in a week.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid, guys. It's easy to do the change. You just have to do it, and you have to know something about how. So next is stabilizing.
Next is stabilizing.
So we want to show you now Hanne technique for how to make the rider stabilize in the upper body.
And it's 1724.
Yep.
Then I'm pulling at her reins, and I'm not teaching people to pull at the reins, but in this exercise, she needs to be strong in her hands as well. But when she's becoming more stable in her body, she can be more soft in her hands. That is, it's easy to be soft in your hands. Could you see that she was moving? Her whole body was moving onto the front of her. Oh yeah, Helen. This is Helen. That is the rider here. Thank you, Helen. That is really cool. And you can see that she's sitting more back on her bum, but she's still a little sway back. And I'm pulling and I'm letting go and pulling. And Dalton is like, oh, they're at this again. Okay. And so it's just like a little tug of war. And I need to be a little strong to provoke her to stabilize. Yeah. You can see that she's starting to become more stable. And this, now she's not so sway in her back. And it looks a little funny because her body is not used to.
She's not stretched up quite yet.
Could you see that? She was. So if you have a horse that is pulling a lot on the reins, you can sit like this and the horse is not able to pull at you in the same way.
We have a question.
Yep.
Lena is wondering if riding without stirrups can help stretch and move your hips.
With this problem, it's very difficult to get help from that, because many people, when you get to seat clinics, you're put in a lunge, sitting without the stirrups. But if the problem is that your hip flexors are too short, you will your legs are quite heavy, and if they sort of hang on to your pelvis in the front, and they are pulling because you're sitting there relaxing with your legs, they're pulling at the front of your pelvis, so that the whole pelvis is tipping. Then you get more sway back. So what you need to do is that you need to train in stabilizing your back, and then it's a help to have the stirrups because they're helping to carry your legs. And when you are able to stabilize in your lower back or in your whole spine, then it's much easier to relax in your hip joint. That is the stabo effect again. And also, if you're put on the horse and if you are wobbly like this, it's so easy to cling onto the horse with your inside of your leg because you get afraid of falling off. And I have been trying to say to people, relax in your legs, just relax. But that is you can't do that because nobody will just relax and then fall off. So you need to give them something else to do instead. Instead of clinging onto the horse, you must balance. Okay, in order to balance, you must sit on your bum, stabilize here, be strong in your abs muscles, straighten out your back, and find your seat bones so that you can find your balance, and then you can do the lunging. Because then you have to start very small steps, just a couple of steps in trot, and then down again. Because if you continue too long, the body will tense up again. Yeah. So, but with young people that are soft and supple and balanced, it's strong. A very good and strong is a very good method.
Yeah.
So we don't say anything wrong about that method.
Absolutely not. So for the problems that we are showing you and trying to solve here and now, riding without stirrups, quite often we'll do the opposite thing. And in those cases, we won't do it, obviously. But with other people, if you have managed to make them stabilize their core, then you will quite often just let them ride without stirrups at the walk for a little while, because that will stretch your legs out if your core is stabilized. So, yes, it can, but we won't always use that method.
So we saw in the first video that we showed, we're going to look at it more again, when you're putting your thighs on the front panels of the saddle, then you take away that strain on your pelvis that your hip flexors and your quads are pulling at your pelvis, so that you become sway back. Because the main muscles that are keeping your pelvis upright are the abs muscles, but they can't do that alone. So they need the seat muscles also because the seat muscles are like here, holding things together there, and the abs muscles are pulling there. So they're like doing this with the pelvis.
They're working together.
Yeah, but you have the hip flexors here that are pulling against those two.
And the hip flexors are the biggest muscle group in the body.
All right.
Yeah, and they are
And
fairly strong.
And we have the gluteus maximus on the other side.
Yeah, that's
the biggest muscle.
Yeah, with a lot of people.
Yeah, but with many people who are taught to sit a lot from childhood, me, when those muscles are too weak, so they're difficult to sort of fire up. Mm-hmm. So then we have to take away the strain from the hip flexors and let the antagonist, the seat muscles, be able to work with not that much strain. Because it's the same as when you're trying to do a deadlift. You start with a little weight, and then So we take away the thigh, so that the stabilizing of the hip or the pelvis can do its job in peace.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So important to remember with that question is that this is a two-sided, two-edged sword always. So on one side, stabilizing. On the other side, becoming supple in the hip joint. Stabilize the core so the pelvis can stay upright, and then become supple in the hip joint so the pelvis can stay upright.
Yeah.
And if the reason for riding without stirrups is to try and loosen the musculature in the hip joint. Mm-hmm. And if you are so advanced that you know how to do that without compromising your lower back, go ahead.
Yeah.
We do that too, right? Mm-hmm. And also it's kind of the same as adding weights to your training or stuff like that. It's fine. It's a great tool, but you have to know what you're talking about. And we have to try and talk to all of those people who are not able to proceed with only taking your legs out of the stirrups, right? Mm-hmm. Cool. Next.
Yeah, so we'll try and see some of the exercises that you can do when riding.
Yeah, sure.
For instance, like let's take 84-10. You can see here she's trying to yeah.
Oh yeah.
Here she's in a 2-point seat, and that has been very difficult because her legs, her quads, that is the front side of her thigh, has been too active, and the hamstrings were not that active, so it was difficult for her to balance with her stirrups underneath her seat. But now she's actually managing to do that because there is balance between the front and the back of her thigh. And now it's also easier to do the rising trot. You can
and
see
now the seat becomes quite light in the rising trot.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
She's smiling. and then you can see also that her hip joint moves in moves like forwards, not just up, forward.
So she lifts the whole pelvis quite a lot forward when rising to the trot.
Without becoming more sway back. That is really important when you're doing the rising trot. Not just many people with this problem, they can't stretch their hip flexors. So they need to work on the rising trot. And this is, and they need to become aware of the fact that they have a hip joint. Mm-hmm. Many people with this problem are using their waist as sort of a
stand-in hip joint.
Stand-in hip joint, yeah.
My hips don't move, so I use my waist instead.
Yeah, and that is the reason why you get all this trouble, lower back problems.
Yes.
Because the hip joint is one of the most important, perhaps the most important joints in the body, because those are the ones that we're using for running and jumping and riding.
Yeah.
And you need the hip joints to be flexible and movable in order for the horse to be able to move its back correctly.
Yes.
So this rising trot and 2-point seat are very, very good like exercises. You must look at them as exercises for a syndrome like this. And you can see now when she's rising up in the rising trot, she's stretching her hip joint, and now she's closing it.
So when standing up, leaning forward, it's closing.
Yeah. And what I say to people when they're doing that 2-point, when they think about rising up in the saddle, that means that you're going to stand like you're standing on the ground. That is not possible when you're on the horse. You must lean forwards with your upper body until your bum leaves the saddle. Mm-hmm. Then if you ask them to do this, then they will do it correctly. And now she's opening the hip joint. And when she's standing in the 2-point, she closes it. And this helps her to be more aware of where is my hip joint, which muscles do I use to close my hip joint, open it.
Yeah.
There, can you see how she's using her now for 2-3 strides? Yeah. She really manages to do it.
It's pretty good right there.
Yeah, there as well.
Yeah.
So what I said to her then was, stretch the front of your thighs. Every time you rise, you stretch the front of your thighs, because the quadriceps is the muscle is it's both closing the hip joint and stretching the knee.
Yep.
So if you tense there, it's impossible to get your lower leg underneath your body.
Yep.
And it's also impossible to open the hip joint.
Yep. You have to make sure that your hamstrings and your buttocks are working at least as hard as the front side of your thigh. Mm-hmm. And most of us don't. And it is because we sit. And it's like this. You sit on your bum. That means there's less blood flow in those muscles. And over time, there's also less signals, nerve signals, meaning you have less control and less musculature there than you have on the front side of the thigh. So many of us have this. You can see that the front side of the thigh sort of has it bulges a little bit forward, while the back side of the thigh is kind of flat, which means that the balance of musculature isn't perfect in that area. Mm. I need to say one thing that is this is kind of complex, but I want to say it anyway. So the hip joint, if you watch it, the femur here has this bend on it, and this is the piece that slots into the pelvis. So the hip joint like this has muscles that attach kind of on the pelvis over here and around to the backside of that, and from the pelvis and down to here, and then from the underside of the pelvis over here somewhere attaches all the way down to the bottom here. So, and there also, of course, on the front side, there's also a lot of muscles. And all those muscles have they can do this to the joint, or this, or this, or that. There's all sorts of different ways to move it. And it's easy to think that either it's if the balance between front side and back side of the musculature in the thigh is correct, then it must be good. But you can't balance such a joint from just the front side or the back side or both. Because that thing wants to move around in all sorts of different planes, right? Mm-hmm. Because of that, it can move in that plane. And you can't stabilize that from this side and this side. You can't stabilize in that plane at all. Mm-hmm. So there's loads and loads of different things here that you have to do. So what we're trying to do then, you saw Hanne when she was first stretching the inside of the thigh, then stretching the front side of the thigh. Then she tried to have the rider use her buttocks more.
And hamstrings.
and the hamstrings more, and all of that is needed in order to rebalance the musculature and the functionality around
Wake
that
them
joint.
up a little. You know?
Some of them need to wake up, some of them need to go to sleep.
Yeah, or let go a little.
Yeah,
Not take all responsibility for all movement.
yeah.
And
sorry.
then afterwards the actual riding becomes an exercise for the man in the brain, as I call that part of the nervous system that is controlling the movement, because all those muscles need to be, as we said in that very early one of our first streams, we were talking about the sequence of the how the muscles are firing. That is so interesting, because that is what the man in the brain is controlling. He's sitting there with all his this is my crazy explanation, but it's a cartoon like explanation, but it's easier to understand. That you see that this man who can't understand words is trying to joystick all the muscles and know exactly which order these muscles are going to fire. All this complex muscles that you were talking about.
Around that.
They need, and the only
joint.
way the man in the brain can understand how to do it is to try and do it again and again. And that is what we call practice. We can't, with our conscious brain, tell that part of the nervous system how to do it. We must practice.
So one of my best qualities is to deconstruct how the body works and show you one or two or several things that your body doesn't know how to do correctly. And sometimes I can improve on that a lot. What Hanne is doing is taking all those things that we just tore apart and set it all together. And she can do that because she doesn't use words as such to describe this muscle does that thing and this muscle does that other thing and then tickle here a little bit. She doesn't do that. She makes you move, and then that movement teaches the man in the brain how to use his controls to do it better.
And it's the same also if a good rider rides the horse.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, now I've fixed this problem, and jumps off and takes the student and puts him on the horse and says, can you feel this now? And then you can learn it much faster because the man in the brain can feel how the horse is moving.
Yeah.
And then you can say, oh, now I understand. Is this how it's supposed to feel? But then you're also influencing the horse in the wrong way. So after a while, the horse will adapt to your movement again.
Yeah.
So that is one of the reasons why it's a good thing to have a good teacher.
Yeah. We have a question again.
Yeah.
Erika is asking for exercises to do at home in your living room.
I got two quick answers for Erika. You already know them. And not in this stream in particular, no.
We have several other streams that we have talked about that,
Yeah.
but we can come back to that.
We should circle back to doing some more exercises in the living room. It's a good
idea.
suggestion. We will take you up on it, but not in this one stream.
We have a couple of other videos about the sitting trot. And the sitting trot is exceptionally difficult when you have this syndrome. Because, as we said with the question of the being lunged without stirrups, your legs are so much pulling on your pelvis. And this is a training thing. It's something that you need perhaps half a year or something with regularly training like this in order to change your muscles in around your hip joint, and also in stabilizing the core, and also like the latissimus dorsi that are also stabilizing the back.
Yeah.
And pulling, instructors, we often say pull your shoulders back, and that is not just swaying more, but shoulders back so that the back muscles that are here on the side of the back,
but yeah,
that are pulling your shoulders back and down, they are attaching to your spine for a long long way down your
all the way down
lower
to
back.
the sacrum, I believe.
Yeah, so they are also stabilizing muscle.
Yeah, you can't only stabilize with your abs,
No.
because if you scrunch your abs up to the best of your abilities, you end up like this. You need to use your back muscles as well. Stabilizing happens on both sides of the spine. All sides.
And also you can't just cramp up. Stabilizing is like, it's a living thing.
Yeah, there's a thing that it's an important thing actually. How much should you keep your core engaged? For instance, if you want to lift a ton of weights in a squat or a deadlift or something like that, the weight of the bar that you're carrying on your shoulders is all the way up here, right? Or if it's hanging off your arms, it's also hanging off the top of your body, meaning that you will probably be forward a bit, so there's an angle like this, and that angle where the weight is hanging on here, up here somewhere, wants to curl your spine like that, and your back muscles will keep you up. But if you just let go, the pelvis will just dump forward. Mm-hmm. So you have to be really, really stable through your core. Mm. Also, in order for the hip muscles to be able to do their job in a more functioning way. And if you're going to lift a max weight, or if you are going to jump as far as you possibly can, or if you are going to extend the stride in the trot to the maximum of your and your horse's capacity, your core should be hard as flint.
And then you have to breathe.
And then afterwards you breathe.
Yeah.
You don't have to breathe for like one diagonal.
True.
Like a good sprinter will breathe once or twice over 100 meters at the sprint. And not because you need to breathe, but because it feels like you're going to die if you don't.
But, if you're riding a dressage program, you need to breathe.
Yeah,
but then you're breathing into a steel container.
I'm coming to that. The point is that you don't have to breathe if you're doing a max exertion. Mm-hmm. Because you can't do a max exertion for so much time that you have to breathe. Mm. Then it isn't a max exertion anymore. Mm. And you won't have to stabilize as much. Mm. Therefore, when you ride the normal trot in a dressage arena, for instance, you just stabilize somewhat. Some percent, 20, 30. But for people who have a completely floppy midsection when riding, you will probably have to maximally contract, do everything in your power to stabilize in order to make the muscles just work a little bit, because that's how it works in the beginning. In the beginning, you are not very good at coordinating your muscles. Coordinating means that the internal in every muscle, but also internal in all the groups of muscle that are needed for the movement that we are trying to do the work efficiently. And we're not good at that in the beginning of any movement. Stabilizing, one of them. Righty then.
Yep.
Rant over. Next.
Yeah, then we can talk. Shall we look at for instance, let's try the 8411. Here you can see that she's trying to do some sitting trot and just some steps at a time. You can see that her hip joint doesn't want to do much, and then she's not able to following the horse forwards. But in the walk, her hip joint is quite active. You can see, and here. Yeah, that was really good. That you could see that her waist.
So now she's moving the hips forward to some degree. They stopped again. They stop for 2 or 3 strides before the trot while trying to engage the horse to do a trot. And now the pelvis doesn't want to stay upright. And you can see the pelvis tilting forward every time the horse lands.
And that is because her hip flexors are pulling the pelvis forwards.
Yeah, and probably also the lower back.
Yeah. But you know, the psoas is actually attaching in her lower back.
Yeah, absolutely. So the psoas tries to pull the knees up and in, or forwards and in.
Yeah. So squeezing with your knees will make this worse, because as we said, the psoas is attaching to the inside of the thigh, through the pelvis and to the lower back. And when that becomes strong, then it's both squeezing and making a lower back. But when the and sorry, Helen, that we're actually focusing on this so much, but it's important to see why this is not good for the back. And many people come to us and say, I have so many prolapses and stuff in my lower back, so I can't do the sitting trot. We got some questions, have we?
We have one question.
Yep. Lena is asking if riding in a 2-point seat is good to stabilize.
Yes.
Yeah, like we just showed, it teaches your body to stabilize and move through the hips, knees, and ankles at the same time. But it is important that you either watch yourself with a video cam or something, or have someone to watch you, because the body will tend to fall into the same old ditch it always has, right? So make sure you don't fall into that same old ditch. The 2-point seat will absolutely help.
Yeah, and also it's a good, because if you do it wrong, you will lose your balance. Many people don't do the rising trot or the 2-point seat because they feel unbalanced when they do it, because it's not so easy to cling onto the horse when you're doing it. And then when they're trying to lean forwards to do the 2-point, they are not bending in their hips. They're just leaning forwards, and then you lose balance forwards. So you need to make sure that you push your bum backwards and close your hip joint. And that is, as you said, Rikke, that we might do some, show you some exercises perhaps next time to be more aware of your hip joints and stabilize your core. Might be a good idea.
We'll play Twister. No. There was a comment from Rikke. She said that when she learned how to do this, all her problems with soreness in her womanizer, it said, are gone now. I suspect you guys will know what that means. I wouldn't, obviously.
You have other things in that area that is not...
Nah.
It's not a good
not
idea to sit on, no?
No.
Many people think that more saddles are like torture instruments, and they want flat saddles. But if you get your pelvis in the right position, the bottom side of your pelvis is like this. If the pelvis is perpendicular, your bottom of your pelvis is like fit very well to that upwards hill in the front. The what's that called? The pommel.
The pommel, yeah.
Of the seat.
Yeah. One very good writer about riding, Paul Belasic, says that you should be crowding the pommel. It says in some of the older, the classical texts. And that's what it feels like when you get it right. You can sit right up, like that's the pommel of the saddle, and you can sit right up to it, not on it. If you sit on it and punish yourself, that's wrong always. But you can sit very near it if you can get your pelvis in the right position. You can sit very near to the pommel, and even I can fit my big bum, in saddles that are actually way too small for me normally, if I can keep my pelvis properly upright.
Yeah.
And this is quite often a problem for me because I travel around riding other people's horses, and most ladies don't have an ass as big as mine. Even if, of course, all of you will believe you do, but that's not. No.
Yeah.
Do you have more movies?
I have several, but I don't think that they will show more or less the same. So I think we're good with this. And I think this might be difficult to to understand while you're just seeing this video on this stream, but watch it again and try and go out and practice and then watch it again, because this will take some time to, and go together with a friend or show it to your instructor and try, and then you will be able to understand it well if you practice sometimes.
A very good comment from Helen here. She says that her body was telling her when she was in the correct position that she was leaning way back. But seeing this, she's clearly not. Mm-hmm. Her body has been lying to her.
Yeah.
The man
in the brain is lying to you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And that's why I get this. I'm told this over and over and over. Oh no, this is so unnatural. Yes, I know.
That is why we often take pictures of people and show them. That's a good.
And then they go, what?
I must because that is an important thing when we're talking about the seat in the saddle and getting your bottom like up there and your bum there. You will feel, people with this syndrome will feel very hunchbacked or like feel like a sack of potatoes when they sit like that.
Yeah.
But that is just because the man in the brain has this misconception that being sway backed is being straight. And you need to practice being a sack of potatoes or being stiff, or it feels strange. Mm-hmm. And then that is why we have mirrors in our riding arenas.
Yeah.
So get a friend to take videos. That is, you see that Helen and me were like showing the world what we're doing wrong. So you can be brave and just get someone to take a video of you and compare it to this and try and practice and don't give up, because it's gonna help.
We have a new question.
Yeah.
Hege is asking if it will be easier to feel or do the movement on a horse with a longer stride or a shorter one.
Yeah.
Depends on how big you are yourself.
Ooh. Very complex and good answer to a very complex and good question. All right. So normally it will be easier to feel a movement with a longer stride.
If your body is long.
It's easier to feel that the movement is there if the horse has a longer stride. Mm-hmm. But it will most of the time be easier to do it with a smaller stride.
Yes. Depends.
And that's the interest. That's where your answer comes into play, isn't it?
Depends. If the horse is over the back, it's really easy.
That's true. But normally, if you sit like this, it's not.
No, because then the horse will drop his back.
Yeah.
So then, if you sit on a fjord, for instance, or a pony with a very small and not so bouncy step, it will be easier to practice.
Yeah.
But you must also understand that if you are a tall person with the long limbs, then the pendulum movement of your body is slower.
Yes.
So if you ride on a small horse, it's not possible for you to move as quickly as the horse.
Yeah.
That is a very important thing to be aware of. I usually use this in my arm. If you try to use your arm and you move it really fast as you can, this is as fast as I can. If I do it with then it's easy to do it quickly.
Because it's half the length.
Yes. It's just, that is the reason why you can control a clock with a pendulum, and you just adjust it with, moving the weight upwards so that the arm of the pendulum becomes shorter.
Yeah.
So if you can try as a grown-up person to sit on a Shetland pony, and it's impossible to move as fast as the pony does. Mm-hmm. So find a horse that is, I know one person that tried she's sitting here. She tried a horse that was big enough for her, and she's got long limbs, and she was so happy after riding that horse because it felt easy and nice. So be aware of that as well. Yeah, we got a comment from Helen.
Yeah, she says thank you.
Yeah.
And Lena says, I'll find and charge my GoPro for my next riding session.
Good.
I like that a lot. And we're awesome. Woohoo!
Yay! Thank you,
Thank you,
Helen. It was really fun instructing you and getting to know you. Thank you.
Yep.
Hope you see you again.
All right. So this has been a typical fault that we find a lot among people who struggle with stabilization in their lower back. If you have back issues like pain, that is also often the case. And it is almost never alone, that problem. It also acts together with the stiff hips. Mm-hmm. And they are stiff in some positions or in some situations. So it's not always that the muscle is too short. Quite often it's this guy up here who's holding them short because it needs some function from them because something else isn't doing its job. Mm. And we have shown you a few ways to get a grip on some of those things. Try to stabilize your spine, use the techniques that Hanne showed to find your right position for your pelvis, to take away the load from the musculature around and especially in front and on the inside of the thigh.
Take away the energy in the beginning.
Yes.
Slow and few steps.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to make it if you just start trotting and trots for an hour. Then it's just going to...
High energy movement is for people who have a lot of skill and strength and stability already. Mm-hmm. And you know that. You know, in any other training regimen, you would never set someone who has a problem to do some wild movement in the beginning, right? You have to start with basics. So this is how to get back to basics if you have these problems.
Okay.
Right? This has been a broadcast from Trollspeilet. I'm just kidding. I don't have a speech in there. Thank you guys very much for tagging along. Watch this space. We're bringing up also a tournament in not too long, a month.
True.
Yeah.
We have a tournament.
Yeah,
Pelle is also doing like nightly sports, like medieval jousting.
Nightly sports.
Yes. He's very nightly. But yeah, but we have a medieval tournament at our place, the 8th to the 10th of September.
We do.
Mm-hmm. And there are coming people from all over the world, from Australia, Romania, England, and some people from Sweden, and people. I shouldn't say England because we have not a jouster but archer. It's doing horseback archery from Wales. So yeah, and so it's going to be skillet arms and horseback archery and jousting, and you can find
a magnificent banquet.
Yeah, banquet
just
as well. Lots of fun people.
You can buy tickets for the whole weekend, and also for the banquet.
Yeah, at www.hoopla.no.
So there. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you guys for following along.
Thank you.